Welcome, lords and ladies, back to the realm. I am your humble host, the Goat King, and today we have the Starfinder 2nd Edition playtest rules. Ysoki. Once known as ratfolk, Ysoki are clever and flexible. With roots on countless worlds, Ysoki work alongside larger species, helping to establish communities and accomplish tough tasks. From the largest of crowds to the tightest of tunnels, a Ysoki always knows how to find their way. Only the foolish overlook the presence of a Ysoki in a group. 6 hit points, small, 25 feet. Let's see, low light vision. And what are their heritages like? Akitonian Ysoki. You or your ancestors were born on Akiton, where you grew up scrapping crashed starships or combing junk heaps for treasures. You gain the trained proficiency rank in crafting and can use crafting instead of thievery to disable a device. If you're already trained in crafting, you instead gain the quick repair general feat. Deep Ysoki. You are accustomed to living in dark places such as maintenance corridors, subterranean wardens, asteroids, and on distant moons and planetoids far from the sun. You gain dark vision. There's this little blurb here we're gonna read out real quick. Ratfolk. In Pathfinder, Ysoki are often referred to as ratfolk by other ancestries and use the ratfolk trait. In Starfinder, individuals with this ancestry are more commonly known by their proper ancestral name and use the Ysoki trait. Treat the ratfolk trait as the Ysoki trait for the purpose of using Pathfinder ratfolk options in Starfinder games. Sensible. Let's see. Long snout Ysoki. The long snouts that run in your family give you a keener sense of smell than most Ysoki. You gain imprecise scent with a range of 30 feet. The GM will usually double the range if you are downwind from the creature or half the range if you are upwind. In addition, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks to seek a creature or object within the range of your scent. Shipborne Ysoki. You were born aboard a starship, inside a space station's access corridors, or another similar environment. You gain the trained proficiency rank in piloting. If you would automatically become trained, yada yada, you become trained in another skill. If you get a success on a piloting check to navigate or plot course, you get a critical success instead. You adapted to maneuvering in close quarters. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to acrobatics checks to tumble through the spaces of medium or larger enemies, and the presence of an enemy doesn't make the squares difficult terrain. And finally, Tunnel Ysoki. Your incredibly small bones allow you to easily compress your body and squeeze through gaps. Whether it's the space between walls to reach a severed data link cable or the ductwork of a space station, you gain the quick squeeze feat, even if you aren't trained in acrobatics. Tight spaces, not tight enough to require the squeeze action, aren't difficult terrain for you. They're ancestry feats. So cheek pouches move to feats. Okay, Nimble Tail's neat because it's got some 0G stuff here. You have an incredibly nimble tail that helps you balance in zero gravity. This could be a hereditary gift from your ancestors, as they adapted to spaceflight, or the result of personal augmentation. You can use your tail to push off while in 0G. In addition, you ignore the clumsy and off-guard penalties while untethered in zero gravity. That seems pretty good. Okay, this is a little confusing to me. I'm wondering if the way I'm reading it is how they intended it. Prehensile tail, requiring nimble tail. Your tail functions as an extra limb and is capable of some precision tasks. You can wield and hold 1 extra hand's worth of weapons and equipment with your tail, and you can use your tail to perform interact actions. Now here's where it confuses me. Your tail is considered 1 pair of hands for the purpose of designating your active hands with the switch active hands action. Because what that sounds like to me is that a 4-armed person might have these 2 hands, 1 and 2 active, right? And then they decide they want to make a different pair of hands active. They might make 1 and 4 active. But it sounds like this with the Ysoki, they have their 2 hands, and their tail counts as a pair all its own. So they can either have their 2 hands active or their 1 tail. If that's how it's intended to be, that sucks. Because you're spending an action to switch to the tail. Whatever actions you wanted to do with whatever it was already holding, probably had it holding something already, if you're doing this. And then an action to go back to what you already had. So it's 3 actions. Now, if you just had your 2 hands, if this hand is not full of something, then you can grab an item and then use it 2 actions. If this hand already had something in it, well, in the remaster, you can spend an action to swap an item. So you spend an action to swap items, an action to use the item, and then an action to swap, back, and or just draw if you like threw a grenade. And so that's still 3 actions. That's 3 actions, and if you stopped halfway through, you'd still have your weapon in this hand usable. Like if you did the 2 actions, like you swapped and then you used an item, now this hand is empty or it has an item you no longer want to use, you still have your weapon out. But if you're doing the tail thing, you switch to the tail, use the item, and now you've just got the tail, and you still need to switch back to get to where you can use your weapon. And maybe I'm reading that wrong. Or maybe they didn't quite intend that. I mean, this is what playtests are for, but that does seem needlessly restrictive, and for level 5 feat, it's worse than not taking the feat. I mean, I'm betting the tail has another upgrade later on, maybe? But, yeah, we'll see. Because it does only count as 1 extra hand, so it's not like your tail is holding 2 things, but it is considered 1 pair of hands. Or that might clear up when we read the rules, when we get to, let's say, 171, 172, that's going to have the deeper rules about pairs of hands. I should go ahead and check that out, instead of hanging out here and... Okay. Some weapons require 1 hand to wield. Okay, we'll skip down to this, multi-armed characters here. Characters that have more than 2 hands, like Kasathas, can hold more items and weapons than typically expected. Performing actions with multiple pairs of arms concurrently is a challenge and can't be done without intensive training. You must designate a pair of hands as your active hands. You can change this designation from 1 pair of hands to another by taking the switch hands action. Some feats may adjust your skill with multiple hands, and you can only attack with weapons wielded in your active hands. Switch hands. Single action, you designate a pair of limbs as your active hands. You can only have 1 pair of hands designated as your... Yeah. So far that does not change my mind. So, we will see. This is cool. Level 13. Upgrading off of cheek pouches. Explosive surprise, you have mastered the infamous Ysoki martial art of spitting a live grenade from your mouth. It takes 10 minutes to safely prepare a grenade and store it in your cheek pouch. As a single action, you can draw and throw this specially prepared grenade using your mouth. You don't need a free hand to do so. That's cool. I like that. Thank you again for visiting the realm. I have been your humble host, the Goat King, and as always, travel with loyal companions.